today. So really, Your Excellencies, I join me really in welcoming this distinguished guest and probably even recognize them by giving them a round of applause. With these few remarks, I would like to hand over the microphone to the moderator of this session, Ambassador Sala, who's a dear friend of mine, and to really thank you very much for being here. We'll be together. And I did say, Honorable Masondo, while I'm still waiting for Ambassador Sala to come, that here you've got heads of the various organs of the African Union. We've got what is called the African Governance Architecture. We have two architectures. We have the African Peace and Security Architecture, and then the main organ around the Peace and Security Council. And then we have the governance sector, which is called the African Governance Architecture. So here you have the heads of the organs. So some we are in South Africa. It's us. It's NEPAD. It's the Pan-African Parliament. Then you have Banjul. Then you have others from Arusha. There we have our courts that are based in Arusha. So really here you could say you have the institutional element that is holding the African Union peace and security architecture on the continent. So really, colleagues, you are welcome, and thank you very much for being here. I hand over the microphone back to my colleague. Thank you.
Another round of applause for the CEO of APRM. Before we proceed to the next speaker, there is an announcement to be done by the IT person. Please take the floor. Thank you.
Good morning, Excellencies. I'll just take you through the interpretation steps again for those who are still struggling online. So at the bottom of your screens, if you're using a laptop, you'll see a number of icons. Kindly select the one called interpretation. And there, you'll have two options, English and French. Select the language of your preference, and then click on mute original language. I'll go through it again. At the bottom of your screens, you see a number of icons. Select the one called interpretation. Pick the language of your preference, English or French, and then select mute original. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as it has been shared by Professor Maloka, that the African governance architecture known as AGA has been declared or has been adopted by the heads of the state and government in 2011 as a structure or as a strategy that will address issues of governance, a deficit, and issues related to rule of law, constitutionalism, as well as the promotion and protection of human and people's rights on the continent. The African Governance Platform, which is the arm that implements activities and programs as well as flagship projects of the architecture, the AGA, is a platform that brings all AU organs with governance mandate, and that's almost all the organs of the AU and the institutions of the AU, as well as the regional economic communities together under the same umbrella to speak with one voice on issues related to democratic governance, human rights, rule of law, and constitutionalism. The chairperson of the African Governance Platform is usually in office for 2 years, unless, of course, there's an attempt of a coup d'etat, which is something yet to happen. So far, since the establishment of the African Governance Platform, the power has been always handed over peacefully and democratically without any attempt of a coup d'etat, unless that is something that the Secretariat is not aware of. But for this year and for this term, the chairperson of the African Governance Platform is the African Commission on Human and People's Rights based in Banjul, and they usually chair at both levels, political and technical. And the vice chair is IGAD. The IGAD is based in Djibouti, and later on we will hear more about what is IGAD is all about. So it is now my singular honor to invite the chair of the African Governance Platform at the technical level, the Executive Secretary of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, Madame Lindy Kumalo, to address this meeting. Thank you very much. You have the floor, please.
Thank you, Ambassador Sala and Prof, for inviting me to address this meeting. I hope there are no clandestine attempts to unseat me as chairperson of the AGA at the technical level. Your Excellency, my fellow ceremonial speakers at the podium, guests of honor, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. This morning I have the privilege of representing Honorable Remy Ngoy Lumbu, who is the chairperson of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights and the chairperson of the African Governance Architecture at the political level. He regrets that he is unable to be with us here during this important set of engagements, and he sends his regards to us all. He has left it to me as the chairperson at the technical level to ably represent him in the deliberations to come. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as newly elected chair of the African Governance Architecture, I've commenced my mandate at a time in the continent when numerous challenges relating to conflict and unconstitutional changes in government are occurring. The mandate of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, indeed the mandates of all our organs and autonomous entities within the platform, enjoin us to work in tandem to support member states in finding effective African solutions and responses to real and present African problems. The pressing responsibility that we have is to advise member states on actions that could be taken to curb this disturbing trend on the continent, which trend must have been envisaged by the Union when it adopted its Agenda 2063, particularly the aspiration number 3, that is, an Africa of good governance, democracy, respect for human rights, justice, and the rule of law. The Agenda 2063 envisaged at its core that all organs with a human rights or governance mandate would use their structures and would at all times avail their technical to place it at the disposal of member states as they grapple with important issues on the continent. There's been no more important time than this for our organs collectively to consider the various ways in which we can jointly formulate methodologies that would serve as early warning measures and mechanisms, as well as resolution mechanisms to address the conflicts and unconstitutional changes in government within the African continent. I therefore wish to commend the APRM for being at the head of the curve in introducing the debate on around the question of unconstitutional changes in government to the platform, and for the platform to have supported this conversation on how the platform members both singularly and jointly, can use their mechanisms to strengthen responses of member states. The deliberations of this technical meeting would place the platform in a much stronger position to take stock of insights drawn from our various perspectives and to pool them together to enrich further actions. Now, in addition to the important discussions on unconstitutional changes in government, as has been said, there's also a second an important purpose why we are here. And I extend Honorable Lumbu's congratulations to the APRM as it celebrates 2 years of hard work and consistent quality of effort, which the APRM has come to be known for in launching of its 2021 report on African governance futures for the Africa that we want. In true tradition of the APRM, this theme was conceived, but also in conceiving this theme, the APRM did not do this alone. It had the foresight and the leadership to be inclusive in its approaches and its methodologies at all times, bringing all the organs along with it. And so we take this opportunity today to be part of this important launch and this momentous occasion of introducing this report to the world. I would like to invite all members of the AGA present in the discussions ahead, and thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Madame Lindiwe Khumalo, the Executive Secretary of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, Chairperson of the African Governance Platform at the technical level. The youth envoy of the African Union has been playing an important role on advocating for the engagement of youth in all the affairs of the African Union, and she has been very active in this role since her recent appointment. We were trying as AGA Secretariat to get hold of her for the longest until we finally found her yesterday on the car with us from the airport to the hotel. And it was a good opportunity to discuss so many things. So I would say the discussion began yesterday, but certainly will continue, and hopefully we'll be able to again have an engagement with you, Honorable or Excellency Youth Envoy in Addis, when you come to officially assume your office in Addis Ababa. But we want to congratulate you as AGA Secretariat and to wish you all the best in this term or during this term, and to commit and recommit the readiness of the AGA Secretariat to support you with your mandate. Congratulations. Please let's welcome the Youth Envoy, Ms. Chedu Mpepa, to the floor, to the high table. Thank you. To the podium.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Sala, for such a warm welcome. And I'm also looking forward to working closely with you as I, prepare to relocate to Addis. Although I will admit I will miss my home in South Africa and being close to APRM in Johannesburg, but I really look forward to working closely with everyone. And I would like to stand on already observed protocol, and I thank you for inviting me to be part of this event. As it is a great honor for me to be here in the mother city in Cape Town, and I stand here representing the voices of young people in Africa as we commence the AGA platform consultative meeting on the 2023 Africa Governance Report. Permit me to also congratulate the AGA platform for successfully producing the first and second Africa Governance Reports, and wish this gathering a fruitful discussion towards the production of the third edition, earmarked to focus on the unconstitutional changes of government in Africa. I am thankful to Professor Eddie Maloka and his team at the APRM for prioritizing youth mainstreaming in their programming and constantly reporting on youth matters. In this regard, I also wish to invite young people to form part of the APRM youth programs, especially the annual APRM Youth Synopsism and other youth-led activities. Young people occupy a critical place in the governance of Africa, and the progress of Africa's Agenda 2063 and the SDGs are dependent on the extent to which the youth are mainstreamed in the various stages of the implementation of such initiatives. Excellencies, Africa is a youthful continent with a youth constituting of over 60% of the continent's population. A few leave young people behind. Aspiration 6 of Agenda 2063, which envisions an Africa whose development is people-driven, relying on the potential offered by African people, especially its women and its youth, and caring for children. And this will be jeopardized if we leave Aspiration 6 of Agenda 2063 behind. Excellencies, the recent spate of coups and unconstitutional changes of government can be attributed to bad governance. More than ever, African societies need to rework on their social contracts whilst implementing African Union normative frameworks for good political, economical, social, and corporate governance, democracy, the rule of law, respect of human rights, and peaceful resolutions of conflicts. The AGA platform remains Africa's source of hope for this to be achieved. AU member states crucially need to stop looking at youth as a demography to be governed, but rather partners for a peaceful and prosperous Africa for us all. Young people have already been mobilizing their leaders to ensure signature, ratification, and implementation of the AU policy frameworks that promote peace. Central to these policies in the African Youth Charter, to date, the Youth Charter has not archived universal accession. I therefore request AGA platform members to upscale their charter and crucially for AU members to sign for this important policy. One of the key priority areas of my tenure as the Youth Envoy is to ensure that all AU organs and directorates embark on activities that reach young people. In that way, the African Plan of Action for Youth Empowerment, APAYE, can be implemented and reach the 300 million young people through the African Union Chairperson's Initiative, 1 million, the next mile. As we deliberate and share ideas on Africa Governance Report 2023, I urge you to listen to the concerns of young people. As a youth envoy, I will use my office and reach to get young people to provide their inputs and to this report. With this, I would like to request for the assistance of APRM, AGA, Political Affairs and Peace and Security Department, as well as other AGA platform members in doing so. I urge the AGR experts to consider nominating a group of young people who can champion the AGRA and also contribute to the AGRA experts reference point. In that way, the AGA platform will be practicing what it promotes, youth mainstreaming and meaningful engagement. In conclusion, I want to thank the government of South Africa and the organizers of this gathering for their hospitality. And I also belatedly wish the APRM a happy 19th anniversary. May the collaboration between the AGA platform members and youth formations at large continue to grow and serve the needs of the African youth to achieve the Africa that we want. Thank you.
Thank you so very much indeed, the AU Youth Envoy. Indeed, Africa as a young continent with its, let's say 65% of its population below the age of 35, if not more. The African youth deserve to be heard simply because they are the majority, but also because they are the assets that we really have in our campaign to build the Africa we want and the Africa we deserve. Once again, thank you very much for your statement. And now I have the honor to invite His Excellency Ambassador Conley King, the permanent representative of Sierra Leone to the African Union and the representative of the chairperson of the APR forum, who will be delivering the statement through his representative. You have the floor, please. Thank you. Please welcome the representative of the APR chair. Thanks.
Good morning. I have the privilege and the honor to represent Ambassador Adekunle, who could not make it to this meeting due to some health reasons. Ambassador Salah, chairman of this program, please permit me to stand on existing protocol. Also, I want to convey to this August gathering that I have been delegated by Ambassador King to read his speech verbatim. So, what you're about to hear is from the ambassador. I feel much honored to be part of this distinguished gathering and to convey fraternal greetings on behalf of His Excellency, the President, Dr. Julius Maada Bio, the government and people of the Republic of Sierra Leone, and on my personal behalf. I must confess that I am a testament of the hospitality of the government and people of this great country, South Africa. When I presented my letter of credence to His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa last year, October, I would therefore like to use this unique opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to the government and people of South Africa for their hospitality to all participants, including myself, and for the excellent preparations for this meeting. Also, I would be remiss in my duty if I fail to extend my deepest satisfaction to the APRM Continental Secretariat for their outstanding role in organizing this all-important meeting and for the honor to welcome this August gathering. Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of our meeting here today is to map out strategies in line with the AU's response to the proliferation of unconstitutional change of government on our continent and the theme of the 2023 edition of the Africa Governance Report. The recent wave of military coup in Africa has raised concern for the AU and its various organs, including the APRM, whose CEOs decried such phenomenon in a statement commemorating the 19th anniversary of the organization earlier this month. It is telling that the theme of this year APRM Day was to strengthen democracy, good governance, and constitutionalizing, which resonates with the views and the cries of the people of our great continent. The recent unfolding event to arbitrarily change constitutionally elected government to a military regime through rogue means or armed conflict have continued to derail the great stride that the continent has made over the years in strengthening and maintaining democracy. Sadly, these recent developments in the continent were thought to have been concealed in the dark side of our history. However, not so long ago, we have witnessed an alarming ingression of coup and political instability in many places in the continent, particularly in West Africa. It is my conviction that this recent development carry a negative message, not only to our international partners, but also raise questions about democratic credentials as a continent. I personally feel today's meeting, bordering around the issue of coup, should not be part of our discourse at this 21st century, but rather find a sustainable solution to Africa's woes. Lack of intertrade, women empowerment, underguard child, provision of the basic amenities, technological advancement, as we live in an age of information technology, to give us comparative advantage in the global arena should be the personal quest between the people and their governments. I must hasten to say also that despite the COVID-19 and its anomalies ravaging the world, the cases and fatalities are still comparatively low in Africa than in other world regions. Truth be told, we are happy that the death rate in our continent at the height of the pandemic was low, not knowing that an epidemic of coup would ensue in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Guinea, resulting to policymakers and decision makers immensely worried about mayhem in those countries and the spillover effect in West Africa, taking cognizance of the African Union's unshaken commitment to silencing the guns by 2030 and realize the Agenda 2063. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the absence of constitutionalism does not just conclude threats to peace, democracy, and the rule of law, it also potentially a menace to our unarmed development gains, which experts say have considerably reversed by the pandemic, for which our health system were ill prepared to handle. We are here today forced to pool our resources at the AU to tackle, mitigate, and prevent future coups for fear of seeing instability spread all over the region of our dear continent. Our response must be swift, adequate, imbued with hope and compassion for the people whose lives have been upended by the unconstitutional change of government. The decision to organize in Malabo in May this year an extraordinary summit of the AU Assembly of Heads of State and Government on terrorism and unconstitutional change of regime demonstrates the gravity of the political situation in Africa and the seriousness with which our leaders are contemplating it. The AU ought to look into the causes of unconstitutional change of government, changes of constitutions, and decision to extend term limits, a blow to the consideration of democracy and the rule of law, as much as coup and cognate attempt to gain power unlawfully. It is my hope that the proposed structure of the African Governance Report 2023, which will be submitted by my president, His Excellency Dr. Julius Matabio, Chair of the APIM Forum of Heads of State and Government, to the AU Assembly of Heads of State and Government during the extraordinary summit in Malabo, will be accepted, and that the APIM will produce an objective report that diagnoses painstakingly the causes of unconstitutional seizure of power and offers durable solution to them. May I also use this opportunity to call on member states to enhance their partnership with the AU through the APRM in a bid to improving the governance structure in order to conceive a future without armed conflict, economic deprivation, and address every problem without recourse to coup. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may I also implore African leaders and the governments to build on the gains that have been made by the African Union through the APRM and its various organs, and urge us all to strive to develop a resilient African identity that will guarantee equal rights and opportunities for our citizens, with a renewed hope and aspiration for the future generation. I wish us all a successful deliberation, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, and we certainly pray and wish His Excellency Ambassador King a speedy and full recovery. Thank you very much for your statement once more, and indeed there's really need for member states to support the African Union efforts to promote democratic governance, rule of law, constitutionalism, and the promotion and protection of human and people's rights on the continent, so we can avoid conflicts or more conflicts to erupt, and also that we will deepen democracy and good governance for building the Africa we want, the Africa we deserve. I have the honor now to call on a mentor to me personally and to many African young men and women, but also an icon of the APRM who devoted his life, in fact, for the promotion of democracy and good governance across the continent, not only in his home country, Chad. And despite, I'm not going to say the age because you're still very young, Your Excellency, as we all are. Despite all of this, you have been really on the road all the time advocating for democracy and good governance on the continent, encouraging the African young men and women to be part of the democratic processes in Africa. And you certainly deserve a very, I'm not going to say round, but I would say an African round of applause, the African way. It's my honor to invite His Excellency, Mr. Khayar Omar Dafallah, the APR focal person or focal point for the Republic of Chad. You have the floor, Excellency.
Mr. President, Chairman, representatives of the Forum of Heads of State in Africa, Secretary General, my dear brothers and sisters, all of you, according to your rank and status, your official status and your official rank, I am very honored to be amongst you, to address you, and to tell you about the situation in my country. I would like to now, when there are lots of changes taking place in Africa, unfortunately through coup d'etat, I would like to talk about the state and the status of my country. And we have just had a rebellion and overturn of the government, and we have had to take responsibility to redress the situation. You know, our commitments in Africa since more than 30 years mean that power cannot be acquired through arms, but through voting, free, transparent voting, and watched by the Republic and by the continent of Africa in general. And that way, we deserve credit. The one who is chosen must be recognized, otherwise he will not be recognized as a democratically elected president. As far as the experience is concerned in my country, we have had several experiences of transition. Maybe the youngsters do not know about this. But the process, the permanent process in which Chad finds itself is in fact changing. The first experience Chad had was after the assassination of the reign of the first president of Chad on the 13th of April in 75. During that period, the High Council was elected by a military agency and by the military society, and we signed the peace accord with the Council of the Armed Forces of the North and the African Union. These agreements, or the called the Khartoum agreements. Experience number 2. In 78, following the signing of the agreement of Khartoum, the armed forces of the North came in power, and it was the end of the long military transition rule, and it was a new democratic transition that was formed. In 79, there were agreements between the Prime Minister and the General MAMUL on the interpretation of the agreement of Khartoum and on the transition charter. Each one was attributing powers to him and herself, and facing the blockage on the 12th of February in 79, the transitional government, in which were the members of the transitional government, the government of MAMUL was successful. And from there, in April 79, we had the agreement of Kanu. The conference was presided by Kanusa, Vice President of Nigeria, of Sanju. This agreement only held for 4 months. We set up a government directed by Kanwe. First, Prime Minister of the government had the function of head of state, Minister of Defense, and there as well we had what we called an armed fraternity. I call it. Myself and many others are of the same region, and from one day to the next, we had war. And for 9 months, we left and fought the battle. The battle was ended in 1980. We reunited, and for us, the adversary was not what we called Kuni, but the adversary was Libya, because they had a different vision for our country. 11 months later, in June 82, the troops entered Kamena and set up the national government, and we elected a head of state, and he set up a government and an armed force between Libya and the country. In 84 till September 87, we literally won over Libya. There is the Libyan army in Libya, but there is also an Islamic front. These are African citizens who join in order to defend the country. So all along our history, we have had problems with our neighbors. It's as if you had a neighbor who's constantly looking over your shoulder to see if you took your breakfast correctly, whether your wife is wearing a beautiful dress or not. So we found ourselves defending our country. And then at a specific moment, Libya found itself in a position where they thought they had won the war. But it's not the country, it's the soldiers and the generals who win the war. And they were in fact officers, and they thought they'd won the war. We found that there was a rebellion, an organized rebellion, which was ended by the drawing up of a constitution on the 1st of April 89 until the 1st of December 90. That is what happened. What we call the government of transition, of national unity, and this regime constituted the National Council of 1990 until 93, and we adopted the new orientation of the Republic, and we finally had the presidential election, a legal election in 96. But we have to say that certain people amongst you think that the people of Chad are constantly disturbing, and it is true, nobody likes to fight or likes war, but we have had to go to war. the sixth mandate was confirmed on the 15th of April 2021. 2020. Yeah, and we had elections 2021. On the 15th of April, our president was elected. On the 15th of April, we had what we call the National Committee for Elections, and it was confirmed that Idris was elected with 86%. At the same moment, do you remember, in Libya, the United Nations had a meeting in Germany and decided that all armed groups which served the Libyan forces had to leave. And the mercenaries who were on the side of Astar went to Tripoli and went back to the Sahel, and the others regrouped the people of the Sahel and went to Chad. And I must tell you that I knew President Idris because I asked him, why does he take so many risks? Why is he not going to war? And he says, Professor, I don't want my mother to cry because I'm no longer there. I love my mother. And I don't want any of my soldiers to be mourned by his mother. That's why I want to take the same risks they take. So on the 18th of April, 2021, he went to stop the agreement, or he stopped the army which came from Libya, and which consisted of 1,500 armed vehicles. We called them mercenaries because they were not normal soldiers, and there was a war fight that in fact injured many. The head of the État-Major called upon the army, called upon the state. 2,000 soldiers went to the capital. We had to stop them. The head of state who had to stop them died. And now the one that has to take over presidency constitutionally is the President of the National Assembly. The President of the National Assembly went to Yamena, to the palace of the President, to say, Mr. President, our President has died. You now are the constitutional new President, the new President of the Assembly. He says, I am ill. I cannot take responsibility. So you have to understand, it wasn't a coup d'etat. And young Mohammed, when he was in the fight, he was 50 kilometers from his father. He also led the fight. His father died and he was not informed. He wasn't informed But it's only when the vice president, everything that was set up by the constitution did not work. The troops, the mercenaries were at 200 kilometers from Jemena. We are talking here, therefore, about a civil war. Look at this situation in Chad. And the Major General called upon the Vice President to come and present condolences and set up a new government. But he was not informed of the death of his father. So they appointed the oldest general and asked him what had to be done. Unanimously, they decided that the most awarded Mohammed could take the power and called upon the young people to return to the country. But he never asked. I never saw him during the protocol events. He never sat next to the president, except for sharing a meal, perhaps. But the general said, okay, we now will take care of the mercenaries. We are going to capture the 1,500 soldiers. Many have died or have gone into the desert. Once the power was restored, no one wanted to be minister. We appointed a prime minister from amongst the civilians. This prime minister had to lead the transition with ministers that were hopefully competent. But the problem we have is we said we should be able to reconcile the whole cabinet. All those who are being reviewed, those who have left Chad for one or other reason had to come back. We should have a national conference, a sovereign national conference that should be that should draw up a constitution to see what has to happen in Chad. They have to present a program, and those who are elected may stay, those who are not elected have to leave. That is the situation in which we are now. And I must say that the African Union, our partners in matters concerning the government, we in the media are still called rebels. We did not have a coup d'etat as one normally calls it, because the officers in times of war should normally be in the front or at the front, not in their offices. They should fight with the soldiers. Everything I have just said to you is we We have bread on our board. Each one has a specific case to tell. Either the constitutional system is blocked, or in the case of Chad, where since 1962 we have had rebellion upon rebellion, or young people are trained to fight against terrorism. The only war we need is not an armed war of army against army, but an army in the shadows against another army in the shadows. So it is the intelligentsia that have to win. So that is what I wanted to tell you this morning. And I must tell you that me and the president, we have ties that date back to 50 years ago. I taught him as a professor in the classroom. He was a fighter when I was a soldier. He was a minister when I became a president, and I'm one of the very few people, when something doesn't work, I go and see him, I go and help him, he helps me. And more specifically, I must tell you that he is a man, he is a president who loves Africa, African, he is a general, but it is a pure man. He is ready to leave his presidency in order to look after Chad. When Sudan and Chad did not get along, when there were rebels, he took his plane, he went to see Bashir to tell him, we are brothers, why must we fight each other? We have 4,000 men, Sudanese warriors, to in fact look after our security and safety. Chad, Libya, Sudan, we all get along, we should get along. And I would like to thank you for having invited me. And remember what I told you in your meetings. We need your help, your support. You have to understand us, and therefore we need your solidarity.
Listen to you carefully, and we learned from the story you have shared, from the history you have narrated before us here, for all of us to learn from and to also be aware of. And certainly that experience in Chad is extremely important, not only for that region, but for the entire continent, because the peace and security of Chad is quite important for the region. The Lake Chad region is also the region of the Sahel. So we thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for sharing that experience. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, now the time has come to listen to the keynote address by our special guest of honor. Mr. Amos Masando was a hero during the struggle, but also he devoted his life to promote good governance and democracy, not only in South Africa, but in fact, in all Africa as a continent. We thank you, Your Excellency, for availing yourself to be part of this opening ceremony, despite your very busy schedule. And we are here to listen to you and to learn from you and from your experience and also from your knowledge. And indeed, this meeting will take note of every word that you will say, and we are very sure that we'll benefit from every word that you will share with us today. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to call on His Excellency, Mr. Amos Musando, the chairperson of the South African National Council of Provinces, that is the upper house of the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa. Your Excellency, you have the floor, please.
Greetings and good morning. The program facilitator, Ambassador Salah Hamar, Chief of the African Peer Review Mechanisms Continental Secretariat, Professor Eddie Maluka, eminent persons, and Your Excellencies, the representatives of the member states, esteemed panelists and participants, ladies and gentlemen. Program facilitator, it is an honor to be afforded this rare opportunity to deliver this brief address as a guest of honor on the occasion of the launch of the African Governance Report 2021 and the first consultative meeting on the development of the AGR 2023. I bring along with me the warm and fraternal greetings from the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa. The mission of the leadership of the African Union with all its subsidiary structures, including the Pan-African Parliament, is to affirm the 1.3 billion African population as the primary beneficiaries of governance. They, the people, possess the primary power which needs to manifest it in faster growth in the quality of their lives. As well articulated in the Vision 2063, the Africa we want, the Africa Governance Report, past and future, are a potent instrument for effectively tracking and improving people's well-being through proper and effective governance. Numerous independent and own evaluative instruments are showing good progress in various areas, including entrenchment of democracies and strengthening of continental governance structures. This also includes the AGR mechanism, economic growth rates, and the recent electoral victories anchored on good governance and anti-corruption in South Africa and Nigeria. Many would agree that there are numerous resilient challenges, risks, and developments that constitute a significant threat to the attainment of the 2063 vision. The World Economic Forum Risk Landscape Report tabulates the following challenges: unemployment and underemployment, underinvestment on critical infrastructure, the fiscal crisis occasioned by the growing and unsustainable debt trap, with aggregate continental debt doubling in just 5 years, with undesirable trade-offs in terms of other development interventions. The vulnerability to ravages of climate change, compounded by droughts and floods, as well as the resurgence of unconstitutional changes to government. A mere glance at other reports on where Africa stands, including the World Happiness Index, the UN Inequality Report, and the Mo Ibrahim Foundation's reflections, reveal that we have a mountain to climb in order to overcome the many challenges facing our continent. These challenges include poor governance, corruption, declining public trust in state institutions, growing insecurities worsened by the emergence of armed rebels that have many manifestations, including the displacement of people and refugees, unemployment, poverty, and inequality. These ugly outcomes of governance and leadership failures, amongst others, in our continent forces thousands of people to flee their countries, risk their lives to seek better life elsewhere. Of course, we must stop these trends, with the parliaments of Africa reaffirming their role of oversight, lawmaking, and promotion of citizens' meaningful participation in governance. Your role in this regard is critical. Some of our parliaments went through various phases, such as the South African Parliament, which emerged as people's greatest hope after liberation and our independence, reaching 64.9% public trust levels in 2004, climbing to 25% in 2017, and growing again steadily to reach 45% in 2021 in terms of the Ipsos findings. There is hope that with the African peer review mechanisms and its various instruments, including the Africa Governance Report, will help reinforce all positive endeavors, ensuring that we turn the tide and remain on course. Our august gathering today with all these eminent persons and panelists to launch a comprehensive program of availing the AGR 2021 to all stakeholders and citizens of the continent kicks off an elaborate consultative program for the development of the AGR 2023. In my view, given so much negativity, it is no exaggeration from facilitator to say this is a cause for celebration. In their book, Why Nations Fail, Akemoglu and Robinson flagged the inability of nations to anticipate disasters and serious threats in order to prepare for their own survival. I believe that your collective effort may, the program facilitator, prod all of us in the right direction. I appreciate the work that has gone into the development of the AGR 2021 titled Africa's Governance Future, Futures for Africa We Want, developed under the guidance of the African Union, 2063. I also wish you success with the development of the 2023 report. Program facilitator, in many respects, the work of the APRM is beneficial to the Pan-African Parliament in the process of carrying out its mandate. These reports that focus on the state of governance in Africa can enable us to have an honest, candid, and frank discussions on critical matters facing the continent. As you are aware, the Constitutive Act of the AU, which established a Pan-African Parliament, provides that the Pan-African Parliament shall ensure the full participation of African peoples in the development and economic integration of the continent. Since its inception, the Pan-African Parliament has prioritized, amongst others, the question of peace and security. It also passes it has also passed many resolutions that seeks to improve democracy and good governance across the continent. The resolution on African Continental Free Trade Area and free movement of persons has captured the imagination of many. However, it is important to note that much more work needs to be done to translate this into practical implementations. In this regard, the collaborative work of the APRM and African governance architecture could assist the Pan-African Parliament to continue to improve and deepen its work. Program facilitated the APRM's 2019 Inaugural Africa Governance Report, titled Promoting African Union Shared Values, provides the AU member states with a comprehensive baseline to assist governments to enhance governance in respect to transformative leadership, constitutionalism and the rule of law, peace, security and governance, silencing the guns, the nexus of development and governance, and the role of the regional economic communities in African governance. The report makes very useful recommendations in relation to the above focal areas, including the promotion of democratic principles and institutions, popular participation, and good governance under the area of transformative leadership. Furthermore, the Africa Governance Report 2021 being launched today provides African governance future scenarios building process by outlining possible scenarios that can lead to best, worst, or surprise case scenarios. Program facilitator, the report contains a set of issues that resonate well with the mandate of the Pan-African Parliament, including those that are listed here under elections, for example, harmonizing the practice of election observer missions in regional bodies and the AU to boost credibility and develop guidelines and common approach to add value. Institutions, for example, improving transparency to facilitate governance, peer reviews, and assessments, including the views of multiple stakeholders and the rule of law, for example, prioritizing the streamlining legal frameworks between the AU, regional entities, and member states. The Pan-African Parliament, which is undergoing transformation from an advisory body into a legislative forum, is strategically empowered to consider and examine the recommendations contained in the report and to act on them. Both the 2019 and 2021 reports contain important recommendations, which can go a long way in aiding the parliaments or assemblies of AU member states, acting individually and collectively through the Pan-African Parliament to rally the peoples of Africa around the AU's Agenda 2063 in the different national and local constituencies. In conclusion, the Africa Governance Report Program Facilitator is an outstandingly laudable contribution to the APRM and to AGA. Perhaps we should at all times reflect on those who came before us, especially iconic leaders of the continent like Julius Malema Nyerere, Kwame Nkrumah, Kenneth Kaunda, Samora Machel, Patrice Lumumba, Nelson Mandela, Thomas Sankara, and many, many others, and find inspiration not only from what they said, but what they accomplished in the context of their time. We know that the AU continues to grapple with complex and difficult issues. Let us add our shoulder to the wheel. Let us contribute in building a better Africa and a better world. Let us do so with vigor and the necessary passion. Allow me, Program Facilitator, to conclude by saying thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to say these few words. Thank you very much.
Honorable Chairperson of the Republic of South Africa National Council of Provinces, we thank you so much for your statement, and certainly have taken notes of every word that you mentioned, and Africa needs to learn from the experiences of its heroes, no doubt about that. We thank you once more, and would like to invite you back to the podium to declare the meeting officially open, if you don't mind. Declare the meeting officially open.
No, thank you very much. It is indeed an honor for me to stand in front of you now and to declare this meeting officially opened.
I didn't want to do it on your behalf because that would be considered unconstitutional change of Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move now to the next part of this program, and that is the launch, or the official launch of the report, the Africa Governance Report 2021. I'd like to invite Madam Lindy Kumalo, the chairperson of the African Governance Platform, to the high table to part of this process, and also Professor Eddie Maloka to deliver a few words on behalf of members of the panel on this occasion of the launch of the Africa Governance Report 2021.
No, just take it. Just take it. Yeah. She wanted to make a statement. The report is formally launched.
On behalf of members of the African Governance.
Okay, I've been asked to launch this report, co-launch it with